Minister of Works and Housing says the country needs ₹500 billion per year for 3 years to construct roads. The country has gone a borrowing again, seeking $750 million World Bank loan to cushion COVID-19 effect. In international news, Khashoggi murder trial resumes in Turkey. And in sport, Plateau Enyimba intensify preparations for CAF Champions League.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has confirmed 168 new COVID-19 infections in the country on Tuesday. The center also reports 70 patients were discharged while one died of complications from the disease. The new cases were confirmed in 9 states and the Federal Capital Territory, where the highest toll of 61 cases was recorded. Lagos followed with 50 infections. Others are Kaduna with 27 cases, Oyo 12, Rivers 6, Katsina 5, Ogun 3, Kwara 2, Edo and Kano 1 each. A total of 62,311 patients have recovered from the coronavirus disease, but 1,169 have died of it. And the CDC says there are slightly more than 3,000 active cases in the country at the moment. Nigeria's Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, says the country needs ₹500 billion per year for 3 years to develop its roads network. Fashola gave this figure while addressing the press corps of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC in Abuja on Monday. The minister seems to lay some blame on past administrations whom he chastised for not showing as much commitment, quote, as the President Muhammadu Buhari government. He said if those past governments had shown such commitment, most of the 35,000 kilometers of the country's roads would have now been completed. Fashola said the current administration inherited many roads, some dating back to 2006 and some older. He said the country was earning more from oil at $100 per barrel, and the nation's total budget was 4 trillion naira. Now with $40 per barrel, Fashola said the country's budget is 13 trillion naira. The minister said there are currently more than 700 contracts working on constructing or rehabilitating more than 13,000 kilometers out of the nation's 35,000 kilometers of roads. Nigeria is once again back at the World Bank, seeking a $750 million loan it says would be used to cushion effects of COVID-19. Many are concerned about the country's mounting foreign debts. Correspondent Kelechi Mekalam has the story.
Fashion designer Victor Felix runs a bespoke fashion store in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Known for his signature suits and other fashion pieces, the decade-old business has generated more than 90% return on his investment. But the COVID-19 outbreak has adversely affected his sales, as social activities have drastically reduced. Sales have dropped by about 75%.
Before COVID, life was fun. We had events, we had people coming up with different things that would involve a lot of people. So the patronage was high because, you're going for events, different people will dress certain ways. Many events are now virtual, so you don't need to dress for those occasions. Demands are low in terms of consumption by the consumers. And even things we used to bring in terms of our materials and things we used to work, we don't get it as much. We used to make like 20 suits before COVID in a week. So right now, we'll make like in a week 5.
But there's a ray of hope for business owners like Victor, as the government announced it's processing a fresh $750 million loan from the World Bank. Authorities say the loan is to alleviate mass poverty caused by the COVID-19 pandemic on SMEs and citizens. Government recently assessed a $114 million loan for a similar purpose from the World Bank, leaving experts skeptical about the move.
The question is, when they could not justify the usage of the previous loan, what is the need for this new loan? What are the specific projects or activities to be financed with this loan? What are the conditionalities of this loan? What are the payment plan for this loan?
Nigeria's current debt profile has been rising steadily. As at September, external debt stood at $31.47 billion. Experts say additional borrowing could pressure the already pressured economy, as a huge chunk of the country's budget goes towards debt servicing.
Nigeria's former finance minister, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, appears to be the lone ranger standing for the post of Director General of the World Trade Organization. This follows a report that her opponent, South Korea's trade minister, Yoo Moon-hee, is withdrawing her candidacy for the position. South Korea is said to have informed the United States of the decision to drop out of consideration for the position because the trade minister had failed to garner enough support from every region. Okonjo-Iweala secured wide margins of popular support, but her candidacy was put on hold because the U.S. had not supported her candidacy. A newsletter, Washington Trade Daily, reports South Korea has already informed the United States of its decision, which is expected to be made public in a matter of days.
Coming up, African news. Zimbabwe teachers reject government's 40% pay hike offer, calls it a mockery. And later, international news. Khashoggi murder trial resumes in Turkey.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Just like they did a month earlier, Zimbabwe teachers have once again rejected the government's offer of a 40% salary hike. And again, they have described the offer as a mockery and have vowed not to return to work until they are paid meaningful salaries. Faraya Wokotuya reports.
The pay hike is meant to placate public servants, including school teachers, who constitute the bulk of government employees. Some of them have not been reporting for work since schools reopened in November. Unions representing them have rejected the offer.
That is not collectively bargained for, which means it was not a result of what workers had put down to say these are our minimum expectations. And secondly, it falls far too short of the current PDL, which, as far as we are concerned, is now well over 25,000.
After the adjustment, the lowest paid teacher will earn 18,000 Zimbabwe dollars, about $220 lower than the $520 they are demanding. Government has resisted the increments, arguing they would push up inflation and derail fiscal reforms. Its latest offer is seen having a negligible impact on inflation.
The major driver of inflation has never been cost-push inflation coming on the back of civil servant salaries. It has been exchange rate caused by excessive money supply. So because there's a cap on the money supply, there's a stabilization of the exchange rate because of the auction system. So the increase in inflation will be very marginal for November in particular. But on a yearly inflation, I expect it to continue on its downward trend. I'm sure you're aware it's now 471%. So I believe in this November it should be around below 400%.
Treasury has projected annual inflation would close the year at 330%. With more money in their pockets, civil servants will stimulate aggregate demand that has been subdued due to the economy and worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. They'll also give a boost to local manufacturers at a time that the government is trying to domesticate production under its recently unveiled National Development Strategy. Government is expected to signal its commitment to the new blueprint in the National Budget Statement.
Our budget should not be focused on numbers because we don't have a lot of money to spend. It should be a reform-oriented budget. We expect the budget to then provide some tax incentives to support the value chains which were announced in the National Development Strategies.
The 2021 budget, which will focus on restoring macroeconomic stability, will be presented on Thursday.
A Uganda utility company, Umeme, has pledged to expedite connection of power lines at Sino Industrial Zone in Zahara, in the western parts of the country. The modern economic industrial zone is said to be in dire need of a boost. Chairman of the Sino Industrial Zone, Stephen Kaboyo, says the industrial zones have a huge economic impact on government's rapid industrialization agenda. Sino Industrial Zone is the first industrial park in western Uganda. President Yoweri Museveni provided the land for the establishment of the park. The park will be divided into 7 main industrial zones, including animal husbandry, textile, food processing, high-tech, pharmaceutical hardware, and imported material zones. In light of the coronavirus pandemic, tourism in many countries are still lagging. There have been fewer tourists as a result of travel restrictions. South Africa's Cape Town is taking steps to wake up the tourism sector. Correspondent Rainer de Calm reports on what the city is doing to accomplish that goal.
Cape Town Tourism's pocket-friendly campaign is aimed at making tourism more budget-friendly and to help the mother city bounce back from the devastating economic impact of the COVID-19 lockdown.
For us, the plan is to diversify Cape Town's tourism landscape. We need to push tourism potential to all corners of the city. And the pocket-friendly campaign is specifically designed to make tourism more accessible and affordable, and ultimately to boost the visitor economy.
Cape Town Tourism has selected 6 neighborhoods as part of its pocket-friendly campaign. Right now we are in Langa, a township which has a rich history in music, sports, arts and culture.
We've produced very prominent musicians in our township. One of the world's best drummists, Tebo Khomoholu, grew up in this community. We lived in London and is back here. Brenda Fassi, that used to be an African Madonna, came from this community. So you cannot come to Cape Town and skip Langa as a township. You haven't done any justice to your traveling.
Langa means the scorching sun. But because other people are struggling to mention it, we decided to shorten it and said Langa, meaning the sun. We were not named after that sun, we were named after this chief who lived back in the day.
We know that there's a perception that tourism is very expensive and it is only centered around certain parts of the city. We want to break down those barriers and we want to demonstrate through the pocket-friendly challenge that you can visit all parts of the city. And here in Langa, where we're launching the pocket-friendly, you can do pottery classes, you can do drumming, you can do the cuisine and the culture all together.
Cape Town Tourism is confident that visitors will also be able to enjoy a pocket-friendly experience in other lesser-known parts of the city, including Sea Point, Kirstenbosch, Cork Bay, Bloberg Strand and Athlone, on a budget of 150 rands or just under $10 each.
When we return, international news. Khashoggi murder trial resumes in Turkey. and later sport. Plateau and Yimba intensify preparations for CAF Champions League.
You are watching ANN. Somewhere in the world, every second of the day, news is happening. And of course, Nigeria is bustling with news day and night. That is why ANN doesn't sleep. Our eyes are peeled, wide open, so no story escapes our radar. We stay abreast of world events and happenings at home. We keep you up to the minute in the world of sports. We give you information to stay on top of your investments and all the hard facts you'll need to navigate your day. If you miss us on air, you can keep up to date on our website and on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. We are ANN, African News Network. We do news right in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. The World Health Organization has applauded latest coronavirus lockdown restrictions in many parts of Europe. Despite rising cases in the United States, the agency says the new restrictions seem to be paying off and are offering a glimmer of hope ahead of Christmas. WHO says restrictions from school and store closures to limited social interactions have led to a 200,000 case decrease from 2 million over the last 2 weeks. WHO Regional Director for Europe, Hans Klug, says future lockdown are avoidable if more people would wear masks and adhere to all health safety precautions. Latest data from the WHO indicates Europe has registered nearly 16 million COVID-19 cases and more than 359,000 deaths. Four-star General Augusto Pena, who is leading the U.S. government's Operation Warp Speed, the crash program to develop, produce and distribute enough COVID-19 vaccine doses to inoculate 300 million Americans, says he's confident vaccines will be on the streets 24 hours after being authorized by the Food and Drug Administration. The operation is stockpiling anticipated vaccines made by 6 different drug makers. While the first 2 vaccines to be distributed will likely be from Pfizer and Moderna, the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Affairs, Alex Azar, described the news from AstraZeneca's clinical trials as very promising and noted that the company's vaccine is already being produced in the country, so it too can be ready for distribution once authorized by the FDA. Azar confirmed the drug maker is already producing mass quantities of the vaccine in the U.S. Last week, Pfizer applied for authorization from the FDA, and the hearing dates were set for mid-December. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden has been informally introducing his cabinet choices as formal transition begins. Many of the choices already announced are Biden's colleagues from his years in the Obama administration. Former Secretary of State John Kerry will be climate envoy, while foreign policy veteran Anthony Blinken is nominated for Secretary of State. Avery Haynes has been nominated for the post of Director of National Intelligence. If confirmed, she will be the first female to hold that position. Alejandro Mayorkas is named as Homeland Secretary boss. If confirmed, she would be the first Latino in that job. President-elect Biden has highlighted the need to rebuild alliances as well as tackling coronavirus and climate change. The trial has resumed in Turkey of the man accused in the murder of Saudi Arabian journalist Jamal Khashoggi in Istanbul 2 years ago. 20 Saudi officials who were not in Turkey are being tried in absentia. Khashoggi is a prominent critic of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, was said to have been suffocated to death and then dismembered allegedly by a team of Saudi agents inside the kingdom's consulate in Istanbul. The defendants include 2 former aides to the prince who have both denied any involvement. Egyptian political dissident Ayman Noor, a close friend of Khashoggi, told the court The journalist felt threatened by people close to Crown Prince Mohammed. The trial has now been adjourned until March. Saudi Arabia, which rejected Turkey's extradition requests, convicted 8 persons last year over the murder. 5 of them were sentenced to death for directly participating in the killing, while 3 got prison sentencing for covering up the crime. The 59-year-old journalist who went into self-imposed exile in the U.S. in 2017 was last seen entering the Saudi consulate in October 2018 to obtain papers he needed to marry his fiancée. The Saudi government said the journalist was killed in a rogue operation by a team of agents. The world's largest flea market reopens in Spanish capital of Madrid for the first time after it closed in March. Still, some restrictions remain in place. Respondent Rahul Pathak has the story.
Now, welcome to El Rastro, which in Spanish means the trail, and this is Madrid's oldest and Europe's biggest flea market. For over 400 years, people have been buying and selling all manner of items, from second-hand clothes to antiques to vintage furniture. But for the last 8 months, this place has been inactive after closing down on March the 15th when Spain went into lockdown for the first time. Now, finally, El Rastro has been given permission by the Madrid local government to reopen, but with some conditions. Firstly, the market can only operate at 50% of its normal 2,800 capacity. Local police are using drones to monitor the numbers going in and out. The Madrid authorities are also only allowing 500 of the licensed 900 vendors to operate on a bi-monthly rotating basis to give everyone a chance to trade. Now, all stalls are separated by 1.5 meters along the entire length of the market's 31,000 square meters to ensure social distancing.
A Sunday without El Rastro wasn't a real Sunday. It ruined us. El Rastro is so typical of Madrid that people used to come here by habit to walk on a Sunday, buy and have an appetizer. It's a tradition that people here always carry with them.
The capacity was very well controlled. You had signals all around, and the police were taking care that the people kept in line and didn't wander around, so there's no feeling of danger.
Now, unlike other major European countries, Spain has avoided another total lockdown, so the reopening of El Rastro is another step in the right direction.
Up next, sport. Plateau, Enyimba intensify preparations for CAF Champions League. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow this story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, Nigeria's representatives in the 2020-2021 CAF Champions League, Enyimba and Plateau United, have started preparations for the competition that begins this weekend. Plateau United will host Tanzanian side Simba FC, while Enyimba would face Burkina Faso side Rahimo FC in the first leg of the round. Aston Villa and England forward Jack Grealish has pleaded guilty to 2 charges of careless driving in connection with a crash during March's coronavirus lockdown, 6 days after nationwide restrictions were imposed. Grealish had denied 2 other charges of failing to stop and failing to report the incident, but the Crown Prosecution Service offered no evidence and the charges were dismissed. That is the ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Have a pleasant evening.